Hi, I am Sean Anders,
And I'm Elizabeth Anders.
and we are foster adoptive parents. And this video is about how we decided to become that. And really, what we're going to talk about today is how we ultimately decided not to decide. And but before we get into that, it really started with us first trying to decide if we were going to start a family at all, if we were going to have kids, or if we were just going to be a freewheeling couple that just does whatever we want.
Yeah, and for myself, I taught and I was around kids a lot with my job, and I was an aunt, and yeah, I think that kind of did it for me for a while. But
So
yeah,
we really weren't sure. And then, like the movie that I made this joke about how I was starting to feel too old to start a family. So why don't we just adopt a 5 year old and it'll be like I got started 5 years ago. And then she kind of ran with that idea for a minute
yeah,
until
I
I did.
I had actually thought of it before when I was young and too young and to take on that responsibility. And I worked with kids who were in foster care, so it definitely was in the background. But to actually consider it myself was felt like a big leap. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then when we started talking about it, we did find some websites like Heart Gallery and Adopt US Kids, and that's one of the pieces of advice that we have is that we thought when we started, oh well, we just pick one of these kids from the website, and that's not how it works. That I think that those kids can get you interested, and you can certainly inquire about those kids. But our experience was that we first went to an orientation. We looked around and there were several different organizations in our area, which is in LA. And we found an orientation and we went to, do you remember the orientation?
Hmm. I think so. Not fully, but
I just remember being really surprised that I thought that there was an outside chance that when we went to the orientation that we might, I didn't think so, but that there was a chance that we might be coming home with a kid. And that was also not even close to true. We went to the orientation and we learned that you have to take 8 weeks of classes of foster parenting classes, and that those classes weren't even going to start, for them for another month and a half or so. So it was going to be a long process. Um, and when we were driving home from the orientation, we didn't feel ready to kind of commit to this whole thing. We were going back and forth. Should we do this? Should we not do this? And that's what I mean about how we decided not to decide. We just decided, well, you know what? And I should say this, that since I've said this, certain professionals in the field have said, oh no, don't say this to people because we want people to commit. We want people to really, make that commitment in their minds. But I can tell you the truth. For me, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I wouldn't have been able to just say, yes, I'm going to do this. I needed to feel like I had an out.
Mhm.
So we started with the idea of like, look, we're not going to decide anything. We're just going to go to the classes. We've got plenty of time. They're not, we won't have kids in our house for months and months at the earliest. So let's just go to the classes and see what we learn.
Well, I think too, I think early on we noticed that sometimes we would be at different places with
Yes.
our feelings and thoughts about it, and we needed to give each other that space and give just the process, some space to kind of not commit and not feel like we had to,
Yeah.
sign on right away because we were feeling it brings up a lot of feelings, just parenting in general and changing your life dramatically like that. So, and I think you need to give yourself that.
Yeah, and that's really true. That's another good piece of advice is that we were constantly devil's advocating with one another. I think when she was feeling like she didn't really want to do it, maybe I was kind of more encouraging her to do it. And then when I was feeling unsure about it, then she would become more sure about it. So we were always kind of flip-flopping.
Yeah.
But I think what happened with us was that these classes that we went to were kind of a long drive from our house, which turned out to be kind of a great thing
Yeah, it
because
was kind of date night.
yeah. and but we would go to the classes and we would learn that there was going to be some really difficult times ahead if we did this, that there were going to be a lot of challenges, but we would also learn about the challenges that these kids go through. And we would have about an hour drive on the way home to talk about it. And it would always sort of lead us back to, even though they were scaring us with a lot of the things they were teaching us, it was making us want to do it. And then by the time we were done with the classes, we finally did decide, and our decision was to to move forward with a placement, but that's our next video.